you were speaking recently in Europe, and you know, what led you to speak in Europe on the particular topic area, and maybe you can share more thoughts around that whole area.
So I talk about a lot of stuff. But I was
Yeah.
recently in Zagreb over the weekend talking about accountability in the digital age. And I really tapped into a lot of the discussion points that we mentioned in the Hague Summit, which is how the speed of technology is still, it's moving quite quickly, but there's still so much in its infancy stage. Still so many challenges that we're facing that are also shaping how regulators will need to think about what happens in the event of AI gone wrong. So that's something that I'm really, really interested in because it's still so much, there's still so much about that dialogue that hasn't yet been solidified.
It's interesting. How did you get tapped for the Institute for Accountability, you know, for the digital age? How did you get involved with that one?
I know one of the board members, Amy van Wisper, and she and I, we were both on the list of the most inspiring women in the Netherlands in tech. And so we met through that sort of nomination process and were awarded with that really distinguished honor. And we just got to talking a little bit about her own work in ethical accountability within AI. And I talked to her about what is sort of my passion and social accountability within AI. And as we were talking more and more about it, and also she recognizes, and I think this came up quite a bit in our session, that there's still not enough of a broad enough stakeholder group in having these sorts of conversations. This was really my first time at this summit where it had this wide array of policymakers, international agencies, academics. I'm typically more on the industry side of summits. And I also noticed that a lot of the people know each other. That means that most of the same people are probably, you know, having this conversation around the world. And I think that's an amazing thing because then you can continue this dialogue because there's no easy answers. But it also, to me, demonstrated that it really needs to be broadened. And I think that there are these acknowledgements that you definitely need to have industry part of that stakeholder group that's going to be creating these frameworks that will eventually become the regulations that guide the digital age. But then there's this, there can be this danger that it's only the 5 to 7 top CEOs of the largest corporations who are involved in having those involved in those dialogues. And this came up also when talking a little bit, the representative from UNESCO talking a bit more from the geographical perspective, how so much innovation is happening in Africa, yet all of those 80 to 100 different guidelines and frameworks that are being created are all excluding Africa as a continent. So it doesn't seem to be the right strategy that those who are really moving at the speed of light and might be the next Zuckerberg or the next Sergey Brin are not included in the conversation because their level of visibility isn't high enough. So I think Amy had a bit of this sort of in the back of her mind that those who are in certain pockets. So within the Netherlands, I have a pretty strong voice in this area, but outside of the Netherlands and in the NGO space, I'm not part of the conversation, but a person with a profile like mine would be a good one to start to include.